What's going on, YouTube? My name is Mr. Crippled, and today I wanted to talk about the state of solo lane, the things that needed to be changed. Now, before I get into the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you'd like to keep up with any future content, I will be leaving a link to my Discord and my Twitch in the description below. Now, first and foremost, I do want to apologize for not uploading as often as I have. I know I've been a little lackluster, been dealing with a couple of my own personal issues, but you're not here for that. You're here to talk about Smite. And the main thing I want to talk about is solo lane. Solo lane is in a horrible, horrible spot right now. And I don't know if it's because of the base game itself or because there's not enough items, but I do think it's a combination of the two. First of all, pure physical solo laners are horrible. They're not bad. They're just not as viable as characters who have hybrid scalings or characters who can abuse the cooldown meta or the hybrid scalings themselves. I.e., why Baron and Chalk are so good right now in solo is because, well, Baron has infinite cooldowns. Chalk also has infinite cooldowns and can stop you from running from him. Characters like Bologna, even characters like Hercules, they suffer because they only get one type of scaling. And on top of that, there's not a lot of good items for magical defense, in my personal opinion. Um, for physical defense, you have Glad Shield, you have Berserkers, you have Shifters, you have so many different options, and even the options that aren't that great still do pretty well, like Breastplate of Valor, or what's that one card? The card that basically slows you whenever it's an active, slows attack speed, stuff like that. There's not a lot of good magical defense items for physical characters. But Zeus and freaking Ra can rock solo lane right now because their cards are so flooded and they have the ranged option. Um, a thing that I feel like Smite 2 kind of needs right now, even though it's an alpha, is just some better items in general. A lot of the items, even Haddix, another big Smite YouTuber, said that there's not a lot of good solo laner items. Most of them are just counter build items, or they don't really net you a lot of utility. And if you've noticed, playing in solo lane, a lot of solo laners have opted to building hybrid. And while most of the time you're supposed to build hybrid in solo, there are some instances back in Smite 1 where just being a full tank and being annoying was what you needed, i.e., Hercules or Atlas or characters like that. But now it feels as though you need to build a bunch of at least 2-3 cards of damage just to be viable. Heck, even Chalk or Baron's solo build starts you off with building Soul Gem into just a bunch of cooldowns and defense, and then packing on a Glad Shield to round out your damage. Um, Another thing is, I just don't feel like there's enough gods for solo right now. There's Ra, there's Nemesis, and characters like that, but right now the meta is just so boring. A lot of the times, the only time you can really get away with a melee solo is if you're playing Chalk, and that's only because he can teleport to you and force you to slow down. Or even Amaterasu. Amaterasu is still really strong right now, and she can basically one-shot you with the right build. But she's just two options. It's either Amaterasu or Chalk, or Baron, or Ra, or even Zeus, which is crazy to me. And even like I said, even Haddix, a pretty famous solo laner. Um, I've been watching his streams, and most of the time, all he's playing is Danzaburo because Danzaburo has range, he has a heal, he has good damage, he can clear. You don't need to build full tank on him to get a lot of value out of him. But if you build Berserkers and Golden Blade and Odysseus Bow, that's really all he needs. You just gotta slap on 2 other damage items and he's fine. Um, Another thing that I feel as though soul laners kind of need right now, I just don't think there should be teleporters. That's just me. I think that's just in Smite in general. Um, but mainly for solo, mostly because it's just way too easy to gank at that point. And I get it. The devs kind of want there to be a much more emphasis on aggressiveness and you having to place your wards smartly, which is totally fine. I don't mind that. At the same time, though, there doesn't seem to be a lot of there's no real counterplay to it. You have to, and keep in mind, you can only have 2 wards, and most of the time, junglers are going to rotate on you from your left side or your right side, depending on what your lane is. But the teleporter side is just going to be completely empty. So at any point, the entirety of the dual lane can just rotate on the solo and kill you. And if you're um if you're not really prepared for that, or if you're not built yet, you could just get steamrolled so easy. Granted, you know, there's give and take with it. The dual lane could end up pushing the dual lane back. Well, what happens if they're behind? They're behind, and then they start ganking you. You have no way to really defend yourself, and that's kind of just the nature of just like team fighting games in general. But I just feel like there should be better options for you to defend yourself if it comes to full on rotations. Another thing that I feel like is not necessarily a problem with solo, but I feel as though I think a big problem with solo lane right now as well is just because of the cooldown meta. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, because it has been a little bit of time since I've last checked the patch notes if they've actually did nerf cooldowns. But for the most part, you can still basically get 80% CDR, and utility characters like Ra or Baron kind of just eat that up, and there's not really a lot of options that other solo laners have. So it kind of forces you to build into a bunch of damage to steamroll early, or just play for the late game and hope that your team doesn't get steamrolled because you have to play back. And I don't know. I just feel like there's just not a lot of options as far as that goes. Um, a good fix for this game, to be honest, if when it comes to solo laners, one, we just need more items. We just need better magical defense items. We need good hybrid items. It doesn't necessarily need to be something like Glad Shield where it gives you magical defense instead of physical. Actually, no. Actually, no, for real. I think that there should be a there in Smite 1, you wouldn't be able to build certain items, kind of like your starters. You wouldn't be able to build certain items if you build into specific cards. So I think a Glad Shield version of magical defense, but keeping you away from being able to build the physical defense of Glad Shield would really help this game out. Since so many guys that are in the meta right now are magical. Um, I think another good item that I really do think they should bring auras back too, just to get a bit more tankiness. Because unless you build fully tanky with a prophetic cloak, you're not even gonna break 200 defense, and that's just purely annoying. And plus, I know there's a lot of there's a lot of anti heal, but I feel like another thing this game could benefit from is just an anti heal starter, just to make the game switch it up a little bit, because most of the time you're gonna run into some form of healer in the game, whether it's in solo lane or whether it's in duo or whether it's in mid. I just feel as though Tainted Steel making a comeback into the game would be really nice. Again, it is an alpha, so I'd imagine they'd probably add it back at some point, but do think that I do think that it should be added at some point. The last thing I do want to talk about for solo is we also just need more gods. The current gods that we have are really boring. Even Hercules kind of lost his luster, and I love Hercules, but Hercules got nerfed, Chalk got buffed, other gods got buffed, cards were buffed, and so it's way harder for him to deal with the current solo laner meta. And I think that the I think additions like Cucullin, or additions like Osiris, or just somebody else new for solo that could, and obviously they need to be hybrid scaling, because the best gods in the game right now have some form of hybrid scaling, and they can build into multiple different cards. But that's basically all I have. If you have any concerns about the game, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below. Thank y'all for watching, and y'all take care.